Bill Smith, who is my first character, Bill Smith is your classic archetypal white male private eye. And he comes from a long line of these guys whose job it is to be the guy who could inherit the world because of who he is. He's a white male private eye in America. As a middle-class, educated, healthy, straight white male, he could be on top of the world, but he sees the world as much too corrupt for that. The price is too high. So he steps back, and his heroism is his heroism comes from the fact that he does step back from that, and he rejects the power he could have had, and he uses whatever he has to save people from the corrupting influence of the power that exists in the world. That's that private eye archetype. My other private eye, Lydia Chin, is a young Chinese-American woman living in Chinatown in New York with her mother. And her heroism is completely different because her heroism consists in being the person she wants to be, the person she knows she is, in the face of a world that tells her, you're young, you're small, you're a woman, you're a single Chinese woman, this is not the thing you should be doing. There's another life you need to be living. And she says no. You know, she's not 100% sure of herself, but she's sure of who she is. And she says, no, this is the life I should be living, I think. And then she goes ahead and lives it. So those are the characters I wanted to deal with, those two archetypes. And those are the stories I wanted to tell. And that's why I write this stuff. And that's why you discerning readers read this stuff, because we're looking for that story to be told, that story of good and evil, chaos and order, that story that says there are reasons for things that happen to us. So, okay, I thought, that's why I write this stuff, that's why people read it, and that's fine. But where does all that snobbery come from that we started with, all those people who say they only read real literature? What is that about? That's a little different, but you know, I went into that too, because all these things are interesting. You know, when people put you down, there's an interesting thing behind it. So I wanted to know what that was, and I started thinking about it, and I think the snobbery comes from two places. One is, as I said, there is a lot of crap published in the genres. There really is. And it seems to me, because I'm going to get to why that is in a minute, but if you ask me, and somebody did because that's why I'm up here, if you ask me, the crap is what the snobs point to justify their snobbery. It's not really why they look down on the genres, but they can look down on the genres and say, but look at all that crap. The crap is not the problem. The popularity of the genres is the problem. This is, I'm looking for where I was going to put that story, and I didn't say where I was, so I'm going to put it right now. Theodore Sturgeon was once asked why he writes science fiction. And he said, you know, and the questioner said, why do you write science fiction? 90% of science fiction is crap. And Theodore Sturgeon said, yeah, well, 90% of anything is crap. That's true, but it's also not the point, because we're trying to deal with the part that isn't crap. This is a society, our American society, which has many, many virtues. One of its virtues is that it is, in theory at least, a classless society. We're a meritocracy. If you're good, you can make it. This is the theory of this society, and we all know it has a lot of flaws, but this is our philosophical basis. The problem with that is that you don't know what your role is. You walk into a room and you don't know who you are in relation to everybody else. And so you have to establish yourself somehow in relation to everybody else. Now, one way to be better than everybody else, one way to be at the top of a meritocracy, is to think of it as a pyramid, and there are fewer and fewer and fewer people as you go up and up and up. And up at the top, there are those few rarefied, educated, highly sensitive individuals who can appreciate great art. Now, if you think of it that way, then you have to see the other side, which is that if something is appreciated by huge numbers of people, it by definition can't be great art. Because those of us who are rarefied and educated and all that, we have to somehow stand apart. So we have to be able to identify the art that most people are just not sensitive enough to get. And I think a lot of the snobbery comes from that. It comes from academics and critics looking for a way to define themselves as excellent people, and they define themselves against all the rest of us who are a kind of, are the masses. And if you look at all the genres all have this problem because the genres, in fact, are enormously popular. Mystery, thriller, science fiction, all of this stuff is vastly popular, and it gives a lot of the critics a pain. And what you'll see is when there's a really, really, really good book written as a genre book, they will come along and say, well, of course, that novel transcends the genre. And, what they're doing is they're taking the cream off the top and then complaining that the milk is skimmed. You can't do it. If it's written as a genre book, you have to mix it in. Now, that explains the snob reaction. It still doesn't explain why there's so much crap in the genres. And I will tell you that, and then I'll take questions because I already got the little sign. And this is my final theory of the day, which is that the stories that people demand, the stories of chaos and order, the stories of what it means to be human, the stories of the possibility of making a connection, the hunger for these stories is so strong that the readers who want to hear the story again and again will put up with lousier stories to get that overarching story. They'll put up with lousier books. They don't want lousier books, but they'll buy them because they're there, and publishers will publish them because publishers only care about what you'll buy, not, what's really great. Literary fiction doesn't have stories. Every book stands on its own. And so it has to have something else to attract a reader, or it won't attract a reader. And so the bad ones, every bit as many bad literary novels get written by undergraduates in coffee houses as bad genre novels, but they don't get published. Because who would buy them? You read a literary novel for that list of literary merits that I ran through before. It has no story, so if the literary merits aren't there, you're not going to read it. Why would you? That's why there's so much crap in the genres, because people want these stories so much they will put up with worse books. But don't ever let anybody tell you that the books are written to be bad because the readers of the genres don't know the difference. Because you all do know the difference. We know the difference. We can tell good books from bad books. So that is my screed. Oh, whom do I read? Oh, that's a dangerous question because some of them are here and some of them I'm going to forget. But I'll tell you what I've been reading lately, and I'll tell you a couple of people whom you may not know. I try to read my compatriots in the genre, but I've lately discovered a young Chinese-American crime writer named Ed Lin, L-I-N. He has a book coming out called Snakes Don't Run, which is actually his third novel, but his first two were published by very small presses. Naomi Hirahara, who is a Japanese-American writer, and has a book just coming out that, of course, I can't remember the name of, but I will someday. Blood Hina. Hina is a Japanese doll. I read, of course, Walter Mosley, and what I love about Walter Mosley is that he goes from genre to genre, and it doesn't bother him. I have been reading lately nonfiction. I just read a great book called The World Without Us, which is the book on which the History Channel show Life After People is based. This is a great book. But I try to read new people. I try to get new sources. And of course, I've read at least the new Lisa C., Shanghai Girls, which it's pretty much the same time as My Shanghai Moon, but it brings the people from Shanghai to New York, or to America. Lisa C., I think, is terrific. Thank you. Lydia's mother is your classic ethnic mother. And she's always on Lydia's case over something or another. And the question was, do I get flack from the Chinese community? On the contrary, they love Lydia's mother. Or at least the ones I hear from. Now, maybe that there are, millions of Chinese out there who hate me and never say anything. But I once had a young man come up to me at a signing and say, I really just have to ask you one question. When did you meet my mother? But the thing is, an ethnic mother is an ethnic mother. I had one too, She didn't speak Chinese, but she spoke Yiddish. So it's really a very universal expression of love. Yeah, writing the same. It does get to be a problem because they sort of do have to change. And the Nero Wolfe never changed, and the weather never changed, and nobody ever changed. You can't do that anymore. That's really too much of a fantasy world. And so it is a bit of a problem because Lydia and Bill do have to change. They have to age. They don't age nearly as fast as I do. That first book came out in '94, and they are now maybe, I think each of them about a year older, which is nice for them. But it's a challenge, and changing their relationship is a challenge too, because their relationship is now growing at the speed of an acorn becoming a mighty oak. But sooner or later I'm going to have to do something about that. It is a problem. You want them to become more mature. You want them to bring more and more to the table as more and more things happen to them. But you don't want to lose what started you with them, because in real life, anybody who'd been through what Lydia and Bill have been through in the last 9 books of theirs, would just be sitting home with the whiskey bottle, just in total despair. That doesn't happen to characters, because then there's no more books to write about them. So it is a challenge. On the other side, though, it's a thrill. I did 2 standalones, and I had to get to know all the characters in those books before I could start again. I came back to Lydia's voice, and it was like, oh, I've come home. I know her. I know what she thinks. I know how she feels. I know how to write her book. I wrote a Bill Smith book that I just turned in. Same thing. I know who he is now. And so that's the good news about writing about the same character. All right, they're going to give me the hook in a minute. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for staying.